The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Live from the PWR studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show on Blog Talk Radio with your host, Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to the Pro Wrestling Report on Blog Talk Radio. Damian Nelson, along with David the alleged one-time Hall of Famer hero, and we are live here exclusively on Blog Talk Radio tonight, and thank God we are, because Monday Night Football is going as long as it possibly can. So in anticipation or fear of that, we decided to go it alone here on Blog Talk Radio tonight. And this, of course, coming off the heels of WWE Raw tonight and last night's WWE TLC pay-per-view. A lot to talk about, David Hero, and some in-depth discussion on the current state of World Wrestling Entertainment as well. Linda Kay is going to be joining us in a minute, and I got to imagine Linda's in a damn good mood, David, because woo, she knew it all along.
Well, yeah, I mean, her main mandible right now is the current United States heavyweight champion. But let's not forget, if you were watching Be the Booker, I called that. Come on now.
We're going to be taking your phone calls. The number 347-996-5278. Again, that's 347-996-5278. Go ahead and follow the prompts that the phone tells you to when you call in if you want to speak to us, and we'll get to your phone calls in just a little while. Tonight, as I said, David Hero, we're going to talk about tonight's WWE Raw. We're going to talk about TLC from last night on pay-per-view, which turned out to be a very eventful pay-per-view. Last week's TNA Impact, let me repeat that, last week's TNA Impact, and the Ring of Honor connection to World Wrestling Entertainment. Got some questions, some statements, and some interesting things to look at as it pertains to Ring of Honor, which really stepped to the front of the wrestling stage last night, and World Wrestling Entertainment. But first, let's talk about WWE Raw. And it was, at the beginning of Raw, CM Punk comes out and does a little bit of a game show kind of gig, I guess, talking about the winners at TLC last night. And for those of you who listened to the post show from the Pro Wrestling Report last night, know that CM Punk retained his WWE Championship. Zack Ryder became the new United States Champion. And Daniel Bryan became the new World Heavyweight Champion in WWE. That is substantial, David Hero. That is monumental that Daniel Bryan is now holding the championship that one day in the past was around the waist of Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, many others. Daniel Bryan is now
Harley Reid, David Arquette, legend, the ring.
Him.
You know, I mean,
go ahead, David.
I mean, you know, it's great for Daniel Bryan Danielson. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't paid his dues. I just think I never would have thought my wildest dreams that Vince McMahon and the powers that be would put the world championships around the waist Daniel Bryan. You know, and I'm not knocking the guy. I think he's a fantastic talent, and he's been a stand everywhere he's gone.
All right. Well, something, your mic's a little muffled there all of a sudden, David Hero. We'll try to fix that. But one thing that really became interesting to me tonight was looking at those three standing in the ring with their belts held high. And obviously the two other champions not joining them were the tag champs Air Boom and the Intercontinental Champion Cody Rhodes. But looking at those three in the ring, it got me thinking. It's like, wow.
The Power Rangers.
I didn't quite think that. But do they look the part? I mean, you've spoken about this for a long time, David Hero, and this is not, as you said, an effort to bury anybody. It's just being factual and looking at it. Do they look the part of the faces, if you will, of WWE? Not whether or not they look to be legitimate champions, but do they look like the champions that we have been conditioned to expect to see in World Wrestling Entertainment is the first question. I'll let you answer that, Dave.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a completely different set of athletes, a different set of superstars right now. I mean, I tweeted out earlier, it reminds me of when they went from Hogan and Warrior and Savage to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels when it was the new generation of wrestlers that were coming in?
Well, I think a good way to compare it is to look back, if you will. And as we said, CM Punk, the WWE champion, Daniel Bryan, the world champion, and Zack Ryder, the United States champion. If we pinpoint those three titles, and if we look back at the last 10 people to be champion and hold those respective titles, and I think it's worth comparing the current champions, not necessarily by skill set, not by ability, not by anything else, but just by the look, because this is all about the look, because perception is reality, and you've got to look the part. The question on the table right now is, do these three look the part? And I think the best way to do that is to see what WWE has put in front of us over the course of the last several years, over the course of the last 10 people to hold those titles, and see how they compare. And I think, first looking back at CM Punk's WWE champion, championship, the last champion, very comparable to CM Punk in look, if you will, Alberto Del Rio, the man who tapped out to Punk tonight.
You know what? And right now I'm getting reports that ADR is in a ton of pain, and they had they threw up the big X sign right after that match. So let's hope that ADR isn't going to be on the shelf for any extended time.
Before Alberto Del Rio, an obvious person who does definitely look the part, like him or not, John Cena was the WWE champion. When you compare CM Punk to John Cena, there's really no comparison as far as looking the part. Now, I would say this, arguably amongst the three of them, if anybody looks more like a champion amongst those three, it's CM Punk. But when you compare him to a John Cena, there is no comparison. However, when you look at the next person to have been WWE champion, Rey Mysterio, well, there is really no comparison. But we didn't have this conversation when Rey Mysterio won the championship. Is that because Rey Mysterio was a man alone, if you will, a man amongst giants? Or because there is some deep-rooted, I guess, dislike for the fact that these three men are champion at the same time?
Well, Rey Mysterio is a character, I don't want to call him a superhero, but that's, he was the masked wonder. He's the amazing moves. He was, just the fan favorite. Everyone loved Rey Mysterio. I'm not saying that everyone doesn't love CM Punk or DVD or Zack Ryder, but it's just a different kind of athlete, a different kind of performer.
Well, continuing looking at the list, the next person to have held the title before Rey Mysterio, and again, we're not looking at the championship reigns. We're looking at the names of the people who were champions. So even at times they may have held it multiple times, we're just going through the 10 names, the last 10 names that had WWE championships. And before Mysterio, it was The Miz, who again, arguably, doesn't look much different than a CM Punk as far as the look of a champion and a wrestler goes. And David Hero, you argued many a time that The Miz looked nothing more than a frat boy in WWE.
Right, and The Miz still looks like a frat boy, but with those other guys in the ring, he looked like a bigger star. I mean, the way he carried himself is different than how Zack Ryder carries himself and or Daniel Bryan. I mean, CM Punk, he has a swagger about him. He looks like he is, that guy.
All right, David Hero, I think that we've got some technical issues on our end. On your phone, we'll get those resolved when we take this first break here. But be that as it may, the list continues, and it goes to Randy Orton. Randy Orton, who has been both WWE and world champion. And, again, no comparison to CM Punk. Randy Orton's that guy. Randy Orton's he's a big dude. He's got the look, if you will. And he is championship material, and comparatively speaking, that list continues. And some of these people on this list, Alberto Del Rio and The Miz, are relatively newer talents in WWE. So we'll see where the list continues to, because you'll get back into, and this list will date all the way back to 2008, by the way, as far as WWE champions go. And a story need be told there, comparing that to the World and United States Championships, which may not necessarily go back that far. Aside from CM Punk, right now in WWE, there is not a champion who is over the age of 30, as far as we can tell. Is this the youth movement everybody's been wanting? And when I say everybody, it's Eric Bischoff's 10% that wants the youth movement. And that Eric Bischoff's 10% isn't going to fund the billion-dollar company that is WWE. We're going to take a time out, ladies and gentlemen, attempt to get this microphone issue resolved. I got to imagine that those idiots at Comcast have something to do with this. But be that as it may, this is the Pro Wrestling Report. We are live on Blog Talk Radio. When we come back, more on the comparisons of WWE's current World, United States, and WWE champions to the past 10 champions and more here on the Pro Wrestling Report on Blog Talk Radio. We're back here on the Pro Wrestling Report. We're live on Blog Talk Radio. Damian Nelson, along with David Octavius, the Tiberius Hero, and our own social media diva, Linda Kay, joining us here on the Pro Wrestling Report. Linda, how are you tonight?
Doing tremendous. How are you, Damian Nelson?
I am fantastic. Have you stopped celebrating yet last night's win by Zack Ryder of the United States Championship? I know you're a woo-woo-woo girl.
Yes, I am, and you know, the party doesn't stop. Woo-woo-woo.
You know, I was actually on Long Island this morning, Linda, and unfortunately was not able to. WWE was also on Long Island, on Saturday night. Was not able to go to that show, but TLC definitely delivered a brand new United States champion. We're going to be taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. The number is 347-996-5278. Damian Nelson along here with David Hero and Linda Kay. We are talking about the current batch of the young breed, if you will, the young movement, the youth movement in WWE, the new United States champion Zack Ryder, as we mentioned a moment ago, the new World Heavyweight champion Daniel Bryan, and WWE champion CM Punk. And we were talking about and comparing those names. And the first 5 names are on that list of former WWE champions, the last 10 champions to hold the WWE belt: Alberto Del Rio, John Cena, Rey Mysterio, The Miz, and Randy Orton. Next on that list, David Hero, is a man who you've endorsed and been behind since almost day one in WWE, Sheamus. No comparison there between Sheamus and CM Punk as far as the look goes.
No, I mean, you know, when you see Sheamus, you see a big, jacked-up guy that looks larger than life, has, you know, a different look about him. You know, he's world champion is written all over the guy.
Mm-hmm. Next is Batista, again, world champion. And Batista had some recent comments he said about WWE and quote-unquote calling it brutal, saying he can't watch the product right now, and said that, you know, a lot of the people just don't look like champions. They don't look like they belong there. And that's similar to what we're talking about right now. You know, Batista was a monster, and, you know, he's a guy who you didn't want to meet in a back alley, and a guy you couldn't walk past at the airport and not think he did something. Those 3 guys in the ring tonight, you could walk by at the airport and say, okay, just normal guys.
Well, you wouldn't even notice, you know, 1 or 2 of them for sure.
Yeah. Maybe it all depends on how they introduce themselves.
Yeah, right. No kidding, huh? I mean, it's 3 completely different guys. I mean, you went from the bodybuilder type, larger than life, and believe me, you know, CM Punk has a larger than life personality. But boy, I tell you, you know what? Obviously, Vince McMahon and company know what they're doing, and they're always smarter than I am. So obviously, they're going in the direction that they want to go in.
Next on the list is Triple H. And again, we're going further back in time as we go down this list. But comparing a CM Punk to a Triple H, again, no comparison. However, the next person on the list, Edge, arguably a comparison there, but Edge somehow or another, he was never a huge guy, all long hair, of course, but never really looked like a John Cena, a Batista, a Triple H, or a Sheamus, but was a champion who wasn't questioned because it took him so long to reach that point.
Well, and let's not forget, when Edge first beat John Cena when he cashed in Money in the Bank, a lot of us groaned. They're like, oh, my God, he's not a main event guy. He's not ready yet. I mean, the same can be said about, you know, the 3 guys we're talking about right now. I mean, one of those 3, all 3 or 2 of the 3 could go on to become huge stars.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the 10th person, most recent person to hold the WWE Championship before CM Punk, Jeff Hardy. And this goes back to 2008. So 3 years, those 10 people have held the titles. And again, much like Edge, there's really not that big a difference, aside from the fact that Edge, Jeff Hardy were both unique. And arguably, CM Punk is fairly unique as well in his look with all the tattoos and whatnot. So I'm not sure if that list proves as much as the other two lists might prove, but definitely some interesting comparisons. And it goes back to the question of, is it really that far out of the norm, given some of the names on this list, for WWE to be presenting us with CM Punk as its champion?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, if you look at the other guys that they can go with, who else on the roster is ready? I mean,
Cody Rhodes.
We haven't seen Mason Ryan in forever.
I'm fine with that.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is certain guys that they definitely were giving big pushes to, you don't see them anymore. You know?
When we talk about this youth movement and perhaps just something we could try, I mean, arguably Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the social media stuff is more appealing to, I guess, younger folks, and it's just something different to try, reaching out to a lot of fans are looking for. I mean, obviously CM Punk, very huge and popular. Zack Ryder with his social media stuff, and I don't know, Daniel Bryan, I mean, he's, rising up in popularity, so perhaps just something different to try, and hopefully the current champs can generate enough revenue that Damien mentioned earlier for this big billion-dollar business.
I don't think they can. We'll see if they do, though, and we're going to ask that question of each other later on. Is this pandering to the audience? We'll get to that in a minute. Now, if we go on the other side and look at the world champion, we'll go over some of the names here. The last 10 champions, and the last 10 people, rather, to hold the World Heavyweight Championship were obviously the Big Show last night, Mark Henry, Randy Orton. We've already talked about Randy Orton. Obviously, Big Show and Mark Henry are larger than life. They fit the mold. They look the look. But when you get to number 7, Christian, not much of a difference between him and Daniel Bryan.
No, not at all. And Daniel Bryan is in the same boat as Christian. Both guys have been in the business for a long time. They've both paid their dues. And the fans were 110% behind both guys when they finally won the titles. So I mean, I guess, when you look at it this way, there's been, quite a few smaller champions lately, guys that weren't the Hulk Hogan types, the John Cena types. I guess you could even, technically you could even put Randy Orton in there also, where he's a guy that's in between, the big and the little. But
yeah, and that of course is the question. And as we go down the list here, number 6 is Edge. We talked about him before. Dolph Ziggler, obviously, same as Daniel Bryan. However, we're back now at Kane, a man who
you really can't say Dolph Ziggler. That was a 45-minute title reign.
I think. Well, apparently Big Show's title reign was shorter than Dolph Ziggler's earlier in the year was, because I think Dolph's lasted over the course of a SmackDown episode. But yeah, he is a former champion, David Hero, and going down the list, he is the 5th person or the 6th person to have held the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And before him, it was Kane. Before him, Rey Mysterio. Before him, Jack Swagger, a person we have not yet talked about. Again, no comparison, really. He's large. He's big. He's definitely somebody. He's got the look. And then number 1, arguably, somebody who's not much different from Daniel Bryan and even CM Punk, Chris Jericho in 2010. Now, that's what's also interesting. The World Championship has had 10 people who've held it since in the last year. However, it's been 3 years for 10 people to have held the WWE Championship, and that includes multiple reigns by John Cena, CM Punk within that. So, Chris Jericho.
The big difference, though, with Jericho is he was already a main eventer at that time.
Yep. But again, this isn't about skill. This isn't about talent. This is about the look. The look. Do they look the part of being champion? And I think your point is very valid, David Hero. If Rey Mysterio would have walked in the door, won the Royal Rumble, and then became champion, everyone would have laughed. If Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, Zack Ryder would have walked in the door and been in the spot that they're in now, people would laugh. If even a Christian or an Edge or a Dolph Ziggler or even a Jack Swagger would have walked in the door and became champion, Jeff Hardy included, walked in the door and became champion, it would have been laughable. But many of these people on this list had paid their dues, not to be cliched, but had paid their dues and had showed that they could be champion and deserved to be champion, thus leaving no question behind their reigns. As we talk more about this, the current United States champion is Zack Ryder. And you would venture to say on the list of the previous 10 champions, it would be a little bit more consistent with the current champion. So let's go down that list, and we'll pluck out those who may not have been or may have looked the part. Dolph Ziggler, obviously, losing it last night. Kofi Kingston before that. Sheamus before that. Daniel Bryan, preceded by The Miz. Before him, R-Truth. Before him, Bret Hart, actually. Now going back, way back in the Wayback Machine. MVP. Shelton Benjamin, and Matt Hardy, that too, dating back to 2008. And one thing I talked about on the post show last night, these titles, the United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship specifically, have some meaning now. They have gotten some meaning, and they have some credibility back to them, which is pretty impressive, given where those titles were over the course of the last few years.
Absolutely. I mean, for a while, again, people can say, well, the title doesn't really mean so much, and just, I don't know, if just prior to the last year or so, I mean, out of a lot of the matches that we've seen on Raw or SmackDown for the Intercontinental title or the United States Championship weren't taken quite as seriously. Again, we're going to, like tie in the look, the visibility, the size of the wrestlers, but as you just mentioned, definitely the last year or so, I mean, just the presence, I mean, even like the look of the belts, that's changed, just like a new presence, just a new feeling for the new champion, for the Intercontinental,
The new WWE generation, is that what you're saying? Anything can happen in the WWE? Old school, vintage, is that where we're going with this? Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe it is.
As you say, Back to the Future.
Oh, come on, Linda. Now. All right, I understand that I've got my endorsements of Cody Rhodes and Dolph Ziggler and Crimson and Heath Slater and The Miz. David, what are you doing out there? Is there a blizzard?
Honestly, it's snowing out here.
It sounds like you just opened a bag of chips over there.
Well, actually, Frank sent me some Doritos for Christmas.
And Diet Coke.
Absolutely.
The championship prestige, at least for the United States Intercontinental Championships, are back. But the point I made earlier about the champions, right now, they're all 35 or under. That's pretty substantial. The question that I think needs to be asked, though, is this pandering? Is the audience being pandered to? Is WWE finally shutting up the internet wrestling audience by putting the title around the waist of Zack Ryder, keeping it around the waist of CM Punk, and giving Daniel Bryan the championship? Or are they indeed truly taking a step in a different direction and attempting to build these new talents and give them some credibility? Now, nobody should fool themselves and think that for any extended period of time will Daniel Bryan be the world heavyweight champion. In case you hadn't heard, there are a lot of reports going on out there that Mark Henry is legitimately injured, and that was the reason for the change. Now, we have not yet verified that, but there are some strong reports that was indeed the reason for it. Hey, let's be honest. It's down season for WWE. WWE, it's the winter, it's the holidays. They know that they're in a bit of a lull, if you will, as they reset, reform, and make some transitions into not only the Royal Rumble, but into WrestleMania as well. So the question, David, and we talked about this earlier off air, is WWE pandering to the crowd in this transition period? Are they pandering to those very vocal few on the internet, on Twitter, on YouTube, and giving these people these championship reigns?
Well, absolutely tonight. I mean, you watched the beginning of Raw, and you watched how the three champions came through the crowd tonight. They're absolutely pandering to everybody, and it's everything that CM Punk isn't, and that's the part that for me was hard to watch. I mean, when he cut that big promo back in June, and just how honest and just brutal he was about everything, and now when you look at him, it's like he's almost pulling a John Cena. I mean, where he's just kissing up to the fans and being their buddy and everything. And it's like, wow, how did this happen? Wow, how did we get to this point all of a sudden?
Did you just compare CM Punk to John Cena?
As far as addressing the fans, absolutely.
Really? But don't you agree?
I see it, Dave. I see it.
Mm-hmm. Really? I'm a little surprised by that because tonight I think there was some genuine excitement from CM Punk regarding the fact that Daniel Bryan's the champion. He had that I told you so prick smile on his face. Daniel Bryan, CM Punk came from Ring of Honor Wrestling. They were champions of Ring of Honor Wrestling. Hell, let's be honest. CM Punk came from the Chicago area and wrestled many times for you, David Hero, in GLCW. And wrestled all throughout Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, he is a Midwest indie guy, and I guess the part that's interesting is how they took it as such an insult to be called indie guys or indie rhetoric and indie-licious. They got no problem saying it now, which I think is rather funny.
Yeah, but do the territories of old equate to independent wrestling? Meaning, when you came up through not FCW or not OVW or not wherever, but when you came up through your local territories, was that also considered independent wrestling? And if so, why wasn't that a problem?
Well, independent wrestling is everything that's not under the WWE brand. I mean,
right.
now even for TNA, I mean, even Ring of Honor, for a lot of people, it's still considered a glorified indie league. So,
it's interesting when you say that about Ring of Honor. I think it's not the fact that you're calling it an indie league. I'm not talking about you specifically. I don't think it's the fact that you're calling it an indie league. I think it's the fact that you're saying glorified. I think there's more negative connotation to the glorified than the actual calling it an indie. But you're right. If it's not World Wrestling Entertainment, and arguably if it's not TNA, it's independent wrestling. And that's not a bad thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because you talk to a lot of people, like we did at Blizzard Brawl, David Hero, specifically Chavo Guerrero, Carlito. So many people are so happy to be outside of that WWE machine and doing their own thing, being their own boss, and working all over the country in these independent wrestling events all over. It's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. And for a lot of the guys, they have thrived on it. I mean, you look at guys like Road Dogg and Billy and Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, who, for some of them, they're making really good money working the indies where they're busy every weekend, different towns, and they're calling the shots, and they're selling their T-shirts and their 8x10s and their pictures with the fans and whatnot. I mean, it's a completely different scenario now than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago because there's far more money involved for them. But, I mean, right now we're talking about the state of the WWE. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, and I'm picking, if you look at it with CM Punk, Daniel Bryan Danielson, Zack Ryder, Cody Rhodes, and the tag team champions, Air Boom, and then the Divas champion, Beth Phoenix, who would have thought that this would be your group of champions and there would be no gold around the waist of a John Cena, a Miz, a Randy Orton, a Del Rio, a Triple H? I mean, it is a changing of the guard right now, and the mid-card guys, all from a year ago, have all the gold.
That is true, and we did, as we said, we have your comments on Facebook. And again, it's interesting, David Hero, because I think we were pretty clear in what we did when we compared current champions to past champions. But we've got a comment here from a Kevin Fuss on our Facebook page. Again, that's facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report. Says, and I quote, "They don't look like a champion. What a ridiculous argument. These are great wrestlers, and their ascension to the top of the card should be celebrated. Look like a champion. That kind of stupid argument is just what Vince would say and then shove waste of times like Ezekiel Jackson or Ahmed Johnson at us. Punk, Bryan, and Ryder, these are the kind of stars they should be featuring." That quote coming from Kevin Fuss on our Facebook page. And I guess I'll let you respond to that first, David.
Okay, well, here's how I look at it. And you can, and this is a conversation that I have had, and this is not just my opinion, but I'm talking about guys that have worked for the WWE, the WWF, WCW, AWA, TNA. You want a guy that does not look like your audience. When When the stars in the ring look like the fans that buy tickets is when you have a problem, okay? Yeah. And right now there aren't too many guys in the company that you can put on a poster and say, wow, this is pro wrestling. This is larger than life. And the fact is, when we say, do they look like a champion, how do they carry themselves? You know, how do they look? Can they go on the Tonight Show? Can they be on the cover of People magazine? You know, and people may say, oh, you know, that's a bunch of crap, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is this, is you want your world champion to have crossover appeal. You want him to be able to walk through the airport, okay, and everyone say, oh, wow, look, there is the WWE champion. And a lot of the guys today don't have that look. They don't carry themselves that way. You know, a prime example is this past weekend, you know, Billy Gunn was in town, and he was in town for our pay-per-view party at Karma, which was last night. And him and I, you know, I picked him up in the morning. We went and we got breakfast. Now, Billy Gunn has not been on WWE TV, I believe it's safe to say, within the last 10 years, okay? Six different people came up to him in the restaurant and said, Billy Gunn, I watched you growing up. Can I have your autograph? Okay? I'm willing to bet that there are other guys that have had far more TV time on both brands, on E and on TNA, to walk in a restaurant today would not be recognized. And it's just the fact of the matter is Billy Gunn is 6'6", 270 pounds, looks fantastic, but he also had that charisma and the way he carried himself. Now, of course, Billy Gunn was never a world champion, but he was one half of one of the more over tag teams in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's important. When I book a show, my poster is on the guys that are recognizable.
Right. And that's not saying.
You know that.
Oh, I know that very well. And that's not saying that these three are not deserving of their championships. It's not saying that at all. And we prefaced that with our earlier statement, so that's why listening is important. But it is important to note, as you just said, David Hero, do they look the part? Because arguably, if you had, let's say, if you had Screech, Dustin Diamond, play the role of Matt Damon in the first Bourne Identity movie, it probably wouldn't have been a franchise that would spur 4 movies. Again, it's the same thing. You have to look the part. You have to look like you belong there, and you have to be, as you've said, David Hero, many a time, larger than life.
And if you're not physically, then your character has to be larger than life.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what CM Punk does. That's what he has. He has a larger-than-life personality.
And keep in mind, while the very vocal fans of WWE have expressed their desire for Zack Ryder, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk to be champions, that doesn't mean the million people that are going to order WrestleMania want to see the same thing. They're going to say, let's picture it, Cicely, right now. You got The Rock. You've got John Cena facing each other at WrestleMania. You've got a potential return of a Chris Jericho, WrestleMania. And on that card, where people are going to tune in to see that match, that main event mega matchup, then around that and surrounding that, you've got these guys as champions. It's a whole different look. It's a whole different feel. They might be able to get away with it. But I'm not sure if on that one night WrestleMania, people are going to then tune in to Raw, SmackDown, and whatever else might be on because of those other guys they saw. Because if that were the case, Ring of Honor, TNA, they would be a lot higher than they are now because they've been focusing on these type people for a very long time. There's your evidence right there.
The interesting thing is if they keep all the titles on their current champions going into WrestleMania, with the exception of CM Punk, all their champions are underdogs.
Or Beth Phoenix.
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah, and Beth Phoenix.
Yeah, Beth Phoenix, who got squashed tonight by Alicia Fox.
Which obviously was a Christmas present for me, you know. But I mean, okay, here's a prime example. Look at Beth Phoenix, larger-than-life character. Who looks more impressive, Beth Phoenix or Daniel Bryan Danielson. Okay. No, I'm just saying. No, you have to. Beth Phoenix, just her look, her charisma about her, her attitude, the way she walks to the ring, she looks like she could rip your head off. Daniel Bryan, as talented as he is, walks the ring like he's the boy next door.
Which appeals to a good number of fans. Let's not dismiss that. I mean, you heard the crowd. They are into Daniel Bryan. They're into Zack Ryder. They're definitely into CM Punk.
Hold on. Here's my question, and I'm sure I will get blasted on this. Are the fans cheering for Daniel Bryan Danielson, or are they cheering for Daniel Bryan Danielson because of how much it will get under the skin of Michael Cole?
Well, I think another question is, are they cheering for Zack Ryder and Daniel Bryan, or are they cheering for themselves because they feel they won? Meaning, all the tweets, all the feedback, the petitions and whatnot, there's that buy-in. We've been talking about this for a very long time. Where's that emotional investment in wrestling? Has WWE, in their new love for social media, found out a way to garner that emotional investment for these stars? Because there is no doubt that they have embraced social media. They have embraced social media beyond more than anybody ever thought they would. And all these darlings, if you will, right now, are people that have been vocalized very heavily by the internet wrestling community.
And you can tell that it's important because if you look at Dolph Ziggler, his trunks have #heel on the back.
Mm-hmm.
It's little things like that where you can tell that this is where they're going to start spending their time and effort.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've just caught up. I mean, it is what it is, and you hear him talk about it so much now. And again, I want to make one thing crystal clear. Zack Ryder, talented. Let's give credit where credit's due. Zack Ryder, in a recent interview, he spoke of this as well. Zack Ryder was sitting there ready to be fired, thinking he was going to get fired. Thought, what did I have to lose? Went on YouTube, started doing this Long Island IZ, True Long Island Story, whatever it might be, and became a star as a result of it. He didn't sit back and wait. He stepped up and made his own story out of this, and it culminated with winning the United States Championship, which a year ago wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference to anybody, but culminated with winning the United States Championship because of what he did for himself. That deserves a ton of credit. Zack Ryder deserves a ton of credit for that, but Zack Ryder needs to bear the burden of delivering in the middle of that ring, and he did have a good match with Dolph Ziggler last night, there's no doubt about it, but he needs to bear the burden of delivering it in the middle of that ring and maintaining the prestige built for that championship by Dolph Ziggler.
I think last night was Zack Ryder's best match I've seen him have. I mean, he tore it up with Dolph Z last night. Dolph Ziggler, they had a great match. They told a great story. And the way the match went, it could have gone either way. That's going to be hard to sustain because he's not always going to have an opponent as good as Dolph Ziggler to work with.
Right.
So let's just see, like Billy Gunn said last night, let's see what they can do.
And that chance will continue. The Royal Rumble is going to be very interesting because of this dynamic that's currently going on in WWE. Let's look at the facts. Mark Henry injured, at least as far as we can tell, as far as we know. Something happened to Alberto Del Rio, your guy tonight, David Hero. That's very clear, especially if you saw that image that we sent out on Twitter that was tweeted out by our dear friend Dave Lagana. They're bringing back The Rock, obviously, for WrestleMania. They're refocusing on The Miz. If you really look at their top-level talent right now, it's all new people. Even from last year's WrestleMania, it's all new people. Wade Barrett's getting an amazing push. I mean, he defeated Randy Orton tonight. That's major. That's huge. That's big time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right now, their top guys, it's Cena, Orton, Miz, Barrett, Sheamus. And you know what? You got to put Triple H in that mix. Of course, and CM Punk as well. I mean, so they're doing fairly well on top guys. If they bring back Taker and they bring back Jericho, they're doing great. And what they've done a nice job of elevating their mid card to all the gold and bronze and silver in the company. So they are establishing new stars. They're making new stars. They're getting the fans invested in these new stars. Let's just see how well it's all going to mesh and come together. I think if they play their cards right and they keep developing the guys that they have right now, WrestleMania could be a star-studded show. They may have 8 to 10 guys that actually will mean something come WrestleMania in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know what? And right now, Cody Rhodes is one of them. I mean,
I'm sorry. One more time. I'm sorry.
Cody Rhodes is a guy that has a ton of potential. I mean, for Booker T to agree to put the kid over, obviously he sees something special in Cody Rhodes. There's got to be something there. So obviously there's more to it.
Yeah, the world's just waiting for you to see it. That's all.
No, yeah, I see everything. You know, but okay. For me, I'm from the old school mentality. Okay, I'm from the old school, whether it be the Crusher school, whether it be Hulk Hogan school, even Stone Cold Steve Austin school. It has to be believable. Okay, that's all I want. Make it believable. You know.
But as you say, you're old school, David Hero. I think a fair argument is wrestling continues to evolve. It has evolved from the days of Lou Thesz. It has evolved from the days of Buddy Rogers. It has evolved from the days of Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair.
And as it's evolved to these newer, younger stars, let's face it, ratings have dropped, pay-per-view buys have suffered. The business has slowly gone backwards.
The business of wrestling is substantially different from even what it was 5 to 10 years ago. You talk wellness policy, you talk suspensions, you talk workout regimens, you talk steroid scandals, you talk about the need to be a well-rounded star, if you will, when you look at the WWE's movie division and you look at what they're planning with the WWE Network. The difference between now and even 10, 20 years ago is they're looking for somebody who is more than a big wrestler. That could be one of the most substantial things that is changing the business. So if you are a Zack Ryder, if you are a Mason Ryan, you got two entirely different tracks you're going to go on in this business. I mean, look at the Randy Ortons and the Kurt Angles of the world. Look at them back in 2003, 4. They're two different people physically. That, I think, right there shows you how much the business in and of itself has changed. I'm not saying it's changed for the better or for the worse, but the business itself has changed, and as a result of that changing business, I think the stars that we are at this point able to believe as legitimate are much different from a while back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, the stars have changed, and like you said, the way they party afterwards has changed and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that people still tune in because they want to see a fight, whether it be good versus evil or whatever. I don't know if some of these guys today, the wrestling fans that tune in, are buying into it. I mean, if you look at UFC, okay, larger-than-life personalities, legitimate badasses, whatever else, and then, you know, it depends on what time you flip through Raw or SmackDown, who knows what you fall on. Maybe you fall on the Usos against the Carlitos. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
Is that gonna make people want to stay tuned and watch? Yeah, they might stay tuned and watch, La Rosa Mendez, but are they gonna sit and watch that tag match? I don't know, and that's the problem.
The fans
those characters.
The fans prove it with their wallets. And David Hero, you made a very, very good point. And while many of you may not agree with the conversation that we've had over the course of the last hour, as Teddy Long would say, believe it, playa, the business shows. The wrestling business is in a lull. The revenues aren't there. The money's not there. WWE is cutting costs at every opportunity they can because you are not buying as many tickets, as much merchandise, as many pay-per-views, as many events as you have in the past. And while you might love the fact that a Daniel Bryan and a Zack Ryder and a Dolph Ziggler and a Cody Rhodes and a CM Punk, this new generation of talents, are doing as well as they are, and believe me, I love it. It doesn't always translate to the mainstream fan. The mainstream fan wants an escape, They want to see an Undertaker, a Kane, a Rock, a Stone Cold Steve Austin, a Hulk Hogan, a Ric Flair, a Big Show, a Mark Henry, a Triple H, a Sheamus even. They want to see guys who they didn't see in their neighborhood bar last night on their television screen, and they will pay to watch those guys. Now, arguably at the same time, if they've got a personality as big as all those people I just said, they will equally pay for that easily. Easily. Look at Shawn Michaels, all right? Shawn Michaels is not much different from the people we've been talking about all this episode, and Shawn Michaels is arguably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Shawn Michaels has more charisma in his pinky finger, okay, than 80% of that roster they got right now.
You're right. But, again, that wasn't the question. That wasn't what we were talking about earlier. We're talking about the look. And when Shawn Michaels won his first championship, his charisma overtook his look, so your point being valid there, David Hero. But physically, same thing. It's not much of a difference. Not much of a difference at all. So that personality, that cult of personality, I guess, definitely plays a strong factor in all of this. And, you know, hey, again, nobody's burying any of these guys. They're all great talents. If we want to talk about their actual wrestling talent, I'm glad to see Zack Ryder was able to prove to people that he had that last night at TLC. Obviously, we know CM Punk can do it, and he can talk the talk. Obviously, Daniel Bryan can do it. We've seen him do it. We've seen him fight through adversity. But the question is there long-term viability in these guys as champion? I commend WWE for taking a chance. I commend them entirely for taking that chance. But how long will the fans, the mainstream, all the fans, not Eric Bischoff's 10%, which of course I say sarcastically, by the way, because it's many more than that. Eric Bischoff underestimates the audience. But how long will the mainstream fans buy into it, and will they be willing to shell out $55, $45 to watch these guys on pay-per-view? That's the question that still has yet to be answered. And I, again, applaud WWE for taking this chance, because they're putting millions of dollars on the table. Millions of dollars on the table. Now, on the other side of that argument, is this internet wrestling audience that WWE is seemingly pandering to, are they a sample of the overall audience? Because, you know, the TV ratings, they don't come from everybody's household in the country. They come from a sampling of the audience. So, arguably, those who are on the internet listening to shows like this, tweeting, watching the programming, maybe they should be catering to those crowds, those fans. But let's not forget a point made earlier. Some of those fans are the same ones that don't spend a dime on wrestling product because they're asking us and asking their friends how to get the free streams for the pay-per-views.
Exactly.
So while some of you might be disagreeing with the dialogue that we might be having now, and many of you agreeing with it as well, how many of you are also causing the problem by not financially contributing to your favorite wrestling organization? I'm sure many of you are. Don't get me wrong on that. I'm sure many, if not most of you are. But let's step back. Let's look at this logically. And see what actually makes sense. From my standpoint, and David and Linda, I want to hear your personal opinions next before we take our time out, before we start our next segment here. From my personal standpoint, this is a great move by WWE. But it's a valid question to ask if it's going to work. It's a valid question to ask if John Cena being WWE Champion again would work. It's a valid question to ask if Mark Henry being WWE World Heavyweight Champion again would work. All these questions are valid. This question valid. I'm proud and happy for Daniel Bryan. I'm proud and happy for Zack Ryder. I'm proud and happy for CM Punk. I'm elated for Cody Rhodes. But will it translate into successful business for World Wrestling Entertainment? And that, at the end of the day, is all that matters. WWE has to please its shareholders. And I'm a shareholder. WWE has to do that. It's all about the bottom line. You can think Zack Ryder's United States champion because you wanted him to be. He's United States champion because of the movement that you did cause, but because WWE ultimately wants to make money for him and off of him because they're a business. So, Linda Kay, your opinion personally of this new wave in WWE, this new direction, if you will, with these younger champions?
Well, I think WWE is taking a huge risk at it, as you mentioned. I mean, risking millions and millions of dollars, trying something where you're giving the fans what they want to see as far as the champions go. They may not be larger than life, but it's what the fans currently want, and I'm happy with it. I think it's great to have the mid-card guys get their big shot at the titles, but in the end, I hope that they can carry through with it, and as a business, financially, they've got to still rise and be stable with that, and I just hope that they continue making the money that they want with the WWE. I mean, I'm just going to put example for radio stations. There may be some stations that are more popular with the listeners. They want more of that, but in the end, it's still business, and if that certain format, and I'm going to compare this to the current champions, if they're not bringing in that revenue, it's still the guys on top, the bigwigs in the business that ultimately have that decision, and they may change back by WrestleMania. Who knows? I hope these guys can still maintain their championships leading up to, not that we're in the road to WrestleMania. I hope they can continue it because I'm happy with it, but
you look at last year's you look at last year's WrestleMania, David Hero, and they took a chance with The Miz. And I'm still not sure whether or not that chance paid off. But this year, they can't take a chance with everybody. So, David Hero, your personal opinion on this, the state of WWE after TLC and Raw tonight? Tough question, isn't it? Let's see.
O'Reilly. Absolutely.
Who?
Riley. I guess right now everyone's in a happy place in the WWE.
And how dare anybody combat that happy place? How dare anybody question whether or not that really is the place we should be in? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know what? I mean, right now, the vocal fans have the champions they want. They have a belt off of John Cena, which people have been talking about. Randy Orton is working with Wade Barrett to make him a bigger name, and that seems to be working. You have Sheamus destroying everybody, and the fans are definitely behind him. You have Cody Rhodes, who seems to be growing on a lot of wrestling fans, and he's becoming a bigger star. You got the tag champs in Air Boom, who the kids like. You have a dominant diva, and you have two legitimate wrestling heavyweight champions in Bryan Danielson and CM Punk. I mean, right now, if you are a wrestling fan, a fan that wants to be entertained, you can be pretty happy as to how everything is. But if you're me, who's a wrestling promoter looking to make money and capitalize on the investment, okay, I'm willing to try it for a little bit. I'm not going to put all my eggs in this one big basket we got here, but I'll pay attention and see how it works. That right there is a big question mark. Because right now, the mainstream crossover stars, none of them have a title belt. CM Punk may be the exception, but everybody else is not.
All right, well, some intriguing discussion here tonight on the Pro Wrestling Report, and we are live on Blog Talk Radio. Monday Night Football is still going on, so we elected not to be on 540 ESPN tonight because we feared this would happen. So we appreciate those of you tuning in here on Blog Talk Radio and being a part of the program, and also all of you in the chat room. Some amazing discussion going on there. Very difficult for us to follow it all at once. We're trying to, but a lot of conversation right now about whether or not you should steal pay-per-views on the internet. I'm going to leave that to your own moral decisions there. But we're going to take a time out. When we come back, it's time to go to the phones, and we should have some very interesting callers after that hour-long discussion about those three and TLC. We're going to take your calls at 347-996-5278. Again, that's 347-996-5278. Follow the prompts when you call in. Let us know you want to speak, and we'll get to your calls. We're also going to talk more about wrestling and the Ring of Honor connection to WWE and TNA Impact. This is the Pro Wrestling Report, live on Blog Talk Radio. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report Radio here on Blog Talk Radio. We're live on Monday night, December 19, 2011. Damian Nelson along with David Octavius and Tiberius, the alleged one-time backyard diva-licious knockouts hardcore Hall of Famer, and our own social media diva, Linda Kay. Linda, David, last night you guys were down at Karma Bar and Grill, one of the Pro Wrestling Report's partners, for WWE TLC on pay-per-view. I understand it was a near sellout crowd.
It was jam-packed in our PWR lounge, so definitely a good time. Thanks, everyone, for coming with support. And, of course, we had Billy Gunn in the house. Good time.
Billy Gunn's important and all, but, Linda, how many kisses did you get last night with that mistletoe?
What?
Well, the mistletoe, it was hanging above the door, above the bathroom, wasn't it? I mean, that's...
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know what? Listen,
we'll have to go to the picture.
Awake tonight. Why you got to give her a hard time?
I'm a reporter. I'm a broadcast journalist. I'm getting to the bottom of the story. Getting the facts, the details. Just the facts, ma'am.
You know, when you dig, you always hit dirt.
Well, we're going to hit pay dirt, along with all of our fans, on Sunday, January 29th, at the Horny Goat Hideaway, back to our Survivor Series location for the Royal Rumble and some GLCW wrestling. What a Sunday it's going to be. No Packers football that day. Come on down, check out Great Lakes Championship Wrestling, featuring stars such as Robbie E., Scotty Too Hottie, Rhino,
there,
Gorgeous George,
and GLCW champion Al Snow.
Oh, just added Al Snow also.
Just added, yes. Yeah.
Wow, that's a huge card.
Start at just $10. Ringside seats are $20. But where else can you go for $10? You're going to see live pro wrestling. Then you stick around, you get to watch the Royal Rumble right afterwards.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. On the largest television in the Midwest, in the BFT, at the Horny Goat Hideaway. Everybody who came down for the Survivor Series with Maria Kanellis had an amazing time. With us. I don't know what that was. Had an amazing time with us for the Survivor Series, and we're going to do it again with those talents at the Royal Rumble at the Horny Goat Hideaway. So come on down, be sure to be a part of it, and join us for that big event on January 29th. You can go to our Facebook page at RSVP for that big event, GLCW and the Pro Wrestling Report at the Horny Goat Hideaway for the WWE Royal Rumble. No matter what, it is always one of the most exciting pay-per-view cards of the year, and it's going to be preceded by, GLCW Exposed is the name of the game. So, let's go down to the phones, ladies and gentlemen, and this should be fun. We want to hear your comments, your questions, and we're going to acknowledge you by the area code from which you're calling, and then we want you to please tell us your name and the city you're calling from, and then move forward with your question or comment so that we can try to get to as many people as possible. And our first person we're going to go to is calling us from the 269 area code. Calling from the 269, you're live on the Pro Wrestling Report. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is David from Michigan.
Hey, David from Michigan.
I have a quick question for you guys. Is there any chance that Ring of Honor is going to expand to more of a, more people can see the show?
Well, Ring of Honor, actually, yes, is the answer to that question. And the reason being is Sinclair Broadcasting just bought a bunch more stations, I believe 6 or 8 more stations all over the country. And let's not forget, and I know it's not the best of experiences, but when you look at smart TVs and things of that nature that are out there right now, it is possible that you can still watch the program on ROHWrestling.com each and every week. So we will see an expansion of Ring of Honor. And one question that we'll ask later about Ring of Honor is, what would happen if WWE were to get their hands on Ring of Honor wrestling? That's a tricky one. But I want to thank David from Michigan for that call. Let's continue on the phone lines. Let's go to our next caller, who is calling from the 240 area code. Caller from the 240, you're live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, how y'all guys doing tonight? This is Ron calling from Lexington Park, Maryland, by way of Washington, D.C. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Tremendous.
That's great. Lovely. Glad everybody's doing okay. Now, I ran into your conversation earlier tonight, and you were talking about how internet fans wasn't supporting WWE, looking for free strength. Now, I'm an internet fan, but I do pay for my entertainment.
Ron, let me be clear, though. Let me be clear, Ron. I would not want to be misquoted out there in the dirt sheets and such. But I said some of these fans who have been very supportive of the people that are now in championship status in WWE are the same people who steal pay-per-views on the internet. I didn't say all. I think it's a fraction of them, but some. And I'm glad to hear you're not one of those people.
And I'm definitely not one of those people. As a matter of fact, I was at the TLC pay-per-view at Baltimore, Maryland, because it's not too far outside of DC. So me and a couple of buddies went to TLC. We actually got to a live show. The place was just off. It was just off the chain. If that building wasn't on hinge, and it went off. Just the way the fans was just going crazy. The way I was going crazy. I'm surprised I still have my voice from screaming and everything in there off of Zack Ryder winning the United States title, Daniel Bryan, I mean, come on, winning the World Heavyweight Champion, CM Punk being WWE Champion. Now, I've been watching these CM Punk and Daniel Bryan for years through the ROH days, especially Bryan back when he was Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, cattle mutilation, and going up against guys like Nigel McGuinness and CM Punk up against guys like Samoa Joe and the Pepsi Plunge, the pedigree off the top of the top rope. And
right.
I mean, I've been watching these guys, and to see these guys blossom and be on top of a major company in the WWE, it makes my heart, as a wrestling fan, it does grow big, and I'm just like, finally, we have something that is totally different. I mean, we look in the past and we celebrate guys like the late great Macho Man Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Mick Foley, Mankind. We celebrate these guys because we could see ourselves in those guys some way, somehow. Yeah. Whether it's Shawn Michaels or whether in all these wrestlers that we always
So what you're saying, Ron, is you like hope and change. I don't know if you heard that, David Hero, but Ron likes hope and change. That's what I hear from DC.
Exactly.
Ron from DC.
Not just mainly hope and change. I just like to see, I could see myself in a guy like Dusty Rhodes because.
Oh, I thought you said you like Pope and Kane. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
I like Pope. No, don't get me wrong. I do like Pope. I do like the Master Kane. I do like those guys. But to see, I can't really identify with that. I've seen a muscular, totally ripped. You know what I'm saying? But I can identify with the guy like a Dusty Rhodes or like a CM Punk or like a Daniel Bryan who fought against the odds to be where they are today. I can see how that can generate with the general public, even to the non fans who just watch it because it's something to watch. They can see CM Punk in them somewhere because CM Punk speaks his mind and don't take crap from the system, no matter what. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He's maybe not the fastest, but he can definitely get the job done, especially when his back is against the wall. And that's why I think a lot of fans can see a lot into CM Punk and into Daniel Bryan and into Zack Ryder and into, any other wrestlers because they can pretty much. They could see them. They could look at CM Punk as like, if I could bust my ass and work hard, doing what I can do, I could be just as successful as those guys I see every Monday night, every Friday night, and on any given Sunday.
Ron,
that's how I see it.
And Ron, that is indeed the connection. And as we talked about, that emotional investment that you have to have between talent and the fans. And that Connection's definitely there. If you're that fan sitting at home and you've been cheering, you've been tweeting, you've been wanting this chance for Zack Ryder, you've been wanting this chance for Daniel Bryan, if you're a person who followed Daniel Bryan back in his Ring of Honor days and on his NXT days and his firing and his return in WWE, I get it. I totally understand that. You're invested. That's your guy. That's your home team. That's who you want to do it. And when they do it, you are behind them 100%. But you have to ask yourself, how many people are like you? Meaning, how many people go back that far? And conversely, how many people only know Daniel Bryan from the humiliation they put him through on NXT and from his time in WWE? And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, there's still some upset people out there that are wondering why Daniel Bryan cashed in last night as opposed to at WrestleMania, when he did clearly state a couple of weeks ago that he was no longer going to wait to WrestleMania. It's, WWE has learned this very, very smartly in their years in the wrestling business. If you try to please everybody, you will fail as a business miserably. So, at this point, they've sort of refocused on who they're trying to please, and they've pleased the internet fans. Now, here's one thing that we all need to get ready for. When that day comes, that Daniel Bryan loses the World Heavyweight Championship, because he will lose it one day, when that day comes, that CM Punk loses the WWE Championship, because he will lose it one day. When that day comes that Zack Ryder loses the United States Championship, because he will lose it one day, how will you all just turn on WWE? How dare them? Of course they had to put the belt back on, insert name here. You have to look at the total picture, the whole story. WWE's year is made or broken on WrestleMania. And WrestleMania is right around the corner. And if they've got a strong enough talent group on the top of the card at WrestleMania, they can take these chances. Without The Rock last year, I'll be able to say this now because David Hero has ruined his career, but without The Rock last year, The Miz would not have been in that main event at WrestleMania because The Rock was insurance. And that insurance paid off. So we'll see what happens this year by WrestleMania time. And even Elimination Chamber in Milwaukee on February 19th. Tickets went on sale this past weekend. Tickets selling pretty aggressively for that show. However, the Pro Wrestling Report is inviting you to join us in a suite. Oh, yes, in a suite.
Sweet and sexy.
Sweet and Sexy Milwaukee. It'll be our second Sweet and Sexy event. As you know, we're doing it at WrestleMania in Miami, that event which is sold out with our guest, Maria Kanellis. You can join us in a suite at the Bradley Center on our home base in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for WWE's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. All the details right now, right on the front page of PWRshow.com. Speaking of PWRshow.com, one piece of feedback that we've gotten from the interns in our daily show summary, David Hero, is about some of the comments on YouTube. People are a little upset over some of the advertisements that you see during some of the Pro Wrestling Report episodes on YouTube. Well, guess what? If you go to PWRshow.com and watch our episodes, you don't get those advertisements. You get one at the front end and back end, but none in between. So it's a choice for you to do that.
Are these the same people that when they go to a movie that they complain that there's previews?
Potentially, because, it's a me generation. And I'm totally fine with that because I'm me.
Yes, you are.
As Doctor Who says, I am, therefore I is. I still don't know what that means. Let's go back to the phone lines, and let's go to a caller from the 707 area code. Caller from the 707, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Ruben. What up? I'm over here in Roanoke Park, California. How you guys doing?
Tremendous.
Awesome.
Great. I've been waiting for this conversation for a long, long time, to talk about the state of wrestling, and I've been a wrestling fan for 30 years. I go all the way back to world-class championship wrestling with the Von Erichs, the Freebirds.
The Sportatorium.
Yeah. I go that far back because I lived in Dallas as a kid back there, and when I saw it like every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, it was just, you saw real tremendous wrestling. And now, when you fast forward to today's date, and you see nothing but a bunch of kids in the ring who rather look good than be good. No disrespect. Hey, everybody needs their moment in the sun, to shine and do what they need to do. But this day in wrestling, I keep longing for Stone Cold to just come out to the ring and just even if it's just for a moment. That way I can have something that I can actually look forward to when I watch the show. Watching Raw tonight, it was a stretch for me.
So you're not happy. You're not happy for Daniel Bryan. You're not happy for Zack Ryder. You're
No. I am an old school cat from the wrestling days when you watch wrestling and when you sat down and you watch it, you were entertained. You know, today's date, like I said, it's the same concept with everything that changes. You have young guys that rather look good than be good. Wrestling back in the day was good, period. Nowadays, you have young guys coming in. They got their body, you know, and all this other stuff, and then they just say, hey, he's 6'3", 250 pounds, he's chiseled out of stone, put a belt on him, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you had to earn it.
Right.
And I just don't see it now. I mean, guys like Daniel Bryan, you know, and CM Punk, those guys came from the cut through, you know, worked very hard. They're exception to the rule. But when you get someone like a Dolphy Z or maybe Mason Ryan or whoever they decide to put a belt on, it's kind of like, oh, because he's a big dude, you're going to put a belt on him just to make us happy? No. I mean, I remember watching Iceman Keith Parsons, which in my eyes, I believe he was the first ever African-American heavyweight champion in the world, you know? And to me, the guy didn't have the look, but he had charisma. The man could talk you into a building and you didn't have no money, but he talked you in the building. You were able to watch him.
Nowadays, Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes is a prime example.
Yeah, you know, you got guys who didn't look like they were chiseled out of stone or whatever, but they could talk you into a building and you were stoked about it. Nowadays, when I look at guys like, I don't know, whatever happened to Alex Riley or Mason Ryan or even Zack Ryder, I look at them and I honestly say, would I really want to go see this?
Right.
I mean, it's just like for me, when people ask me, why are you always watching Money in the Bank? Because for me, it's the best pay-per-view of the entire year because it's what I'm talking about. You brought wrestling back to us. And then you did that little thing, well, you know, tricked a little fish, baited. You did it to us again, and you got us again. And I thought to myself, man, I was kind of hesitant to buy a pay-per-view after that because I was thinking SummerSlam, if they can keep the steam with SummerSlam and keep it going, you got me. And you know what? They got us in the worst way.
Wow. Well, I mean, that comment is definitely the sentiments of many wrestling fans out there and even the opinionist David Hero. And David Hero, I think that his comments can be backed up with what we hear from a lot of the people in the wrestling business today. It's two different classes, if you will. It's not the old school and the new school. It's those that paid their dues and have been in the business for a long time, and those that in some cases, I'm not naming any names or referencing anybody we've talked about, but those in some cases who come in and think the business owes them the world because they are who they are, whoever that may be.
Right, and you know, and that is the nature of this beast of a business. I mean, I've said it before. You know, in the wrestling business, you will find and you will meet the largest collection of insecure people in your entire life because they know, I mean, at the snap of a finger, their run can be done.
Yep.
I mean, look at Mark Henry. He was getting the push to the moon, indestructible.
Yep.
You know, he has a little injury, boom, they take the belt off him. Now they go in the direction with BBD. So, I mean, you never know when your time is up in the wrestling business. That's why these guys, they have to cash in when they can. They got to make the most of every opportunity they're given. And you know what? I don't know. It's not my greatest collection of champions at one time, but I think if these are the guys they're going to run with up to WrestleMania, they need to invest into them and make sure that they're ready to go, make sure that their promos sound good, and now here's a chance to elevate and make some newer and bigger stars, get some guys out of the mid-card.
Well, some intense discussion tonight on the current state of professional wrestling. Not quite the direction we expected to take, but a good direction nonetheless. Still to come, we have to talk about the results of WWE TLC, last Thursday's TNA Impact, and more of your phone calls. This is the Pro Wrestling Report live on Blog Talk Radio.
There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand. And get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report. We're live on Blog Talk Radio tonight. Damian Nelson along with the lovely social media diva Linda Kay and David Octavius and Tiberius, the alleged one-time Hall of Famer hero. And want to let you all know that we are indeed very pleased to have presented Mean Gene Okerlund with the Pro Wrestling Report Lifetime Achievement Award last week on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. You can watch the full version of that right now on our Facebook page. Footage not shown on our television show or on our online version of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. Available right now on our Facebook page. Again, that's facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report. Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report. All right, just a few more minutes of show here. We're going to go back to your phone calls. We're talking about WWE. And for those of you that paid attention last night, was WWE TLC on pay-per-view. Let's run down the matchups, and you can get full results, full discussion, including our special guest, Billy Gunn, on the post-show available at PWRshow.com. The Beth Phoenix defeated Kelly Kelly to retain the Divas Championship. Air Boom defeated Primo and Epico to retain the WWE Tag Team Championships. Cody Rhodes defeated Booker T and is still the Intercontinental Champion. Sheamus goes over on Jack Swagger, wins that matchup. Randy Orton defeating Wade Barrett in a tables match. Wade Barrett would get his revenge on Orton tonight. Zack Ryder is the United States Champion, defeating Dolph Ziggler. Triple H defeats Kevin Nash with a sledgehammer in a sledgehammer ladder match, rather. And CM Punk retains the WWE Championship in a triple threat TLC match against The Miz and Alberto Del Rio. And Big Show defeats Mark Henry. And after that, Daniel Bryan cashed in the Money in the Bank to become the new World Heavyweight Champion, making himself the 10th person to do so. David Hero, last night, WWE TLC on pay-per-view. I know there was a lot going on at Karma as you watched it, but your thoughts overall on that pay-per-view?
I thought it was a great show. I mean, I thought it was well done, well written. Yeah, I liked it. I was a fan of TLC last night. I mean, to hear Creep and Red Light Special, and
Now we're not talking about the jukebox. We're talking about the pay-per-view tables, ladders, and chairs.
Oh yeah, and that was fantastic. Also, I mean, there was some good wrestling last night. I mean, they started off with a great match. I mean, Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler set the stage. I mean, they got the fans into it, and Dolph Ziggler, putting over his good close personal friend. I mean, the crowd was in a great mood. And then, you go into, which I was surprised to see Randy Orton on the third match on the show over Wade Barrett. Shockingly enough, he RKO'd him through a table. But, I mean, and I'm sure I'll get heat for this, but I thought Kevin Nash and Triple H had a great match. I mean, Kevin Nash, a guy 53 years old, who some of his best years are behind him in wrestling, went out there and had a pretty solid ladder match with Triple H. I thought it was believable. I mean, the object of a pro wrestling match is to what? It's to win. It's to beat somebody. And that's what they did last night. It was a fight. It was two guys trying to kill each other, and that's how it came across on TV. The main event in the triple threat, I thought it was very solid. I thought it was good. Some things were a little hokey, where CM Punk was able to remove the second rope all by himself with pretty much one hand, which...
What would they have called Cena if Cena would have done that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but obviously, CM Punk is a superhero also. Who knows? I mean, obviously, geez. Who would have? I mean, I have set up a wrestling ring, and I have torn one down. And you normally need tools to loosen the ropes that much to get them to come off the ring post. But apparently CM Punk has that, clobber in time strength.
WWE TLC going into it delivered more than you thought coming out of it, though, right?
I'm sorry?
The pay-per-view overall you thought was better than what you expected going in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Was far better than what I thought I was going to see.
All right. Well, let's go back to the phones. Take a couple more phone calls. Our next caller has been holding for a while, and he comes from the 732 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey guys, it's Chris from New Jersey.
Hello, Chris from New Jersey.
How's it going, guys? Listen, man. I mean, I know you guys are good with keeping people on the phone, but honestly, the whole time I've been holding, you guys have been contradicting yourself like crazy, man. Honestly, it's just like the whole thing about like CM Punk and all these guys, like, you know, you talk bad about him, but then all of a sudden you save yourselves and talk good about him.
But here's the question, Chris. How did we talk bad about him? How did we talk bad specifically about CM Punk?
Honestly, I can't remember because you guys will go from one subject to another in like the past hour and a half. But I mean, one thing I could think of is just like for example, like one of the good things you guys said is just like, this is what the fans wanted, this and that. But actually, now I remember right before that, you were just like, these guys can't hold the candle, this and that. Like Daniel Bryan, I'm sure he's not going to last too long, this and that. This is what the fans wanted. But in my opinion, real quick, this is what I want to say to you guys. With CM Punk and stuff like that, it's not like Sheamus or A-Rod where they got the push. Look at CM Punk now. Look how much merchandise he's selling. I mean, for God's sake, Vince McMahon had to come out with an anti-Cena suck shirt just to counteract the merchandise that CM Punk is selling. Because remember, CM Punk is out selling freaking everything that CM Punk.
Well, and why is CM Punk outselling John Cena? Because if you don't have a John Cena T-shirt, you didn't try very hard to get one. I mean, John Cena's been a top guy for almost the past 10 years. CM Punk has just been a top guy since June. And would he be that top guy if he wasn't given the opportunity to cut the promo heard around the world, 6 months ago? Who knows? I mean, CM Punk, he is a good in-ring performer. His charisma outweighs his physical ability. So, for me, I'm looking for the good and the bad in CM Punk. CM Punk walks through the airport. Are people going to say, "Oh, wow, he must be a World Wrestling Entertainment Heavyweight Champion"? No, they're not going to think that. They might think he's some skater dude or some fan guy or whatnot.
No, I'm glad actually you brought that up because now I remember when you were talking about Billy Gunn that you walked through the airport with him, and I don't take anything away from Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn, obviously people are going to come up to him. He was, when wrestling was hot, when Nitro was pulling like a 4.0 and Raw was pulling in a 5.4, that's like a 9 combined for wrestling. Of course people are going to remember Billy Gunn. He was the hottest thing going for tag team matchup. But like now, dude, how many interviews have you read recently that CM Punk says, "Oh my God, I'm wearing my headphones, I'm reading the book," and people just come up to me and bug me all the time. CM Punk gets recognized in the airport.
Why? Okay, so do you honestly think CM Punk is not going to say that about himself? Is he going to say, no, nobody comes up to me and asks for my autograph? No, nobody ever comes up to me and says, "Are you CM Punk?" Of course. I mean, wrestling is an ego-driven sport. Let me just say this. I have been with the guys, okay? We have been in the restaurants. We have been in the airports. We have been in the hotel lobbies. I see which guys get the attention and which guys don't. I have seen CM Punk walk through a place and be completely, unnoticed. And then I've seen other guys walk through a place and they get mobbed. So, I mean, what I'm saying is it's how you carry yourself, okay? At the end of the day, can this person walk out of a wrestling ring and onto the cover of a magazine? And, some people may say, well, that's not what pro wrestling's about, but at the end of the day it is. Because if you look at Vince McMahon's biggest stars, they've headlined Saturday Night Live. They've been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They've been in People magazine. Those are the guys that draw money. Exactly, and they've been on a box of Fruity Pebbles.
And Chris, I think one very important point, and we'll let you go ahead and finish up your statement, is
thank you.
What we were doing was talking about, do they look the part? This had nothing to do with talent. This had nothing to do with whether or not they deserve it. I thought that point was very clear several times. Now, conversely, we did then give our opinions on their talent and their ability and why they may have gotten to the point that they got to. But the core of the discussion initially was, do they look the part? Meaning, not just David Hero's airport analogy, but do they look like a WWE champion? And I think when you really look at that list of names, it's about half and half compared to the last 10 champions of those respective titles. So back to you, Chris.
Or did Shawn Michaels and, Bret the Hitman Hart look the part? Absolutely not. But eventually, and you guys, like I said, you guys, you said stuff about Shawn Michaels, and then you said, obviously, you can't, Shawn Michaels is one of the best of all time. You can't even say anything bad about him. But, when he was thrown the spotlight, I mean, everybody at that time was saying, he doesn't look like this big guy. He doesn't look the part of a WWE champion. But, I mean,
here's the big difference between Shawn Michaels and, let's say, Daniel Bryan Danielson. When Shawn Michaels won his first world championship, he beat somebody. He didn't cash in a briefcase. So he earned credibility after he won the title. Now, CM Punk and DVD, and you can say Edge and all these other, even ADR, they won their first world championships by cashing in a Money in the Bank. They did not get to that respect, the upper card respect, until they defended and then won back a championship in a match. So that's the big difference. I mean, you know what? DVD is a great wrestler. So now let's just see what he's going to do going forward.
Right. Honestly, in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of Daniel Bryan. I respect what he's done, but he's not the guy that can carry the company because he can't draw money for WrestleMania. That I agree with you guys, but when you guys are ripping on like Ryder and CM Punk, I mean, those guys are selling out merchandise, and remember, that's what it comes down to. At this time, you're absolutely right. They don't look like the, typical wrestling champions, but at the moment, yeah, they're out selling merchandise, and remember, that's what it comes down to. It's not the same state that it was, 10, 15 years ago.
Chris, hey, I'm all about selling merchandise. I mean, Hogan was never a great wrestler, but he sold a ton of merch. John Cena's not a great wrestler. He sold a ton of merch. Hey, Zack Ryder is doing a fantastic job. He rolled the dice, like you said. He's going to get fired or they're going to do something with him. And they rolled the dice. He had the right guys behind him. And he's, is he a great in-ring performer? Not yet. He's getting better. But he's selling T-shirts and hats and all that stuff. And, hey, when you do that, then you're a star.
Yeah, but you can't compare Hulk Hogan to CM Punk. Hulk Hogan back then.
I don't think I did.
Well, Chris, I think let's clear one thing up, because I think that the core of your conversation continues to be that somehow or another we buried Punk and buried Ryder. Where I show me the part where that happened, because all I recall is we said that they don't look, or they may not look like the champions of old, or people who can, as you just said, support the heavy burden that is WrestleMania. CM Punk deserves a ton of credit, because he has, if of those three, he's the only one who has proven to the overall audience that he deserves to be in the spot he's in. Zack Ryder, as mentioned before, took the ball and ran with it, did his thing, and got himself noticed and is champion as a result of that. Daniel Bryan Danielson, at this point, to most of the WWE audience, cashed in a briefcase, and as David Hero said, didn't win an hour-long Iron Man match like Shawn Michaels, who you can compare him to, and keep in mind, those two have history, at WrestleMania to become the champion after a solid build for the company. So this, unlike a Shawn Michaels, puts a ton more burden on a Daniel Bryan and on a Zack Ryder, because they built their own machines. There wasn't the WWE machine that made them where they are. But as far as anyone burying any of those three talents, I challenge you that we did not do that. But we did attempt to spur some honest discussion about whether or not they have the simple appearance of being championship material, barring their talent, barring what they've done, and comparing them to the 10 people who have held the belts before them.
All right, one last thing, and then I'm going to leave. Big fan, guys. Thank you for listening to me. And by the way, I was at Survivor Series. I'm one of those guys. And by the way, I'm not going to hog all the telephone line. So go on to your next callers. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it. And let's move on to our next caller. And that caller is coming to us from the 704 area code. Caller from the 704, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
What is going on? This is the great Dwayne Moore out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
What up there, Dwayne?
First off, I wanna make a counterpoint to David Hero's statement about comparing Daniel Bryan's championship win to versus Shawn Michaels. I feel like it's only because that's how it was booked. Had it been booked to where, he, I think it should have been booked the other way. I'm glad that he's the champion, and I just don't like the way, the whole Money in the Bank, cashing it in, type thing when somebody's down. To me, that's it's corny. The only person that didn't do it was Rob Van Dam, and they don't even, acknowledge that. But what I like to say is, as far as the state of wrestling, I think it's good. I think it's fresh. It's, I like the whole, when they came out of the crowd, and, it's what the people been asking for. We're tired of the cookie cutter system of Vince McMahon force feeding us John Cena and Randy Orton, and I respect those guys. I love Randy Orton, I love Cena, I love The Undertaker, but to me those guys are they had their time now, and it's time for guys like Punk and Danielson and Ryder, Ziggler, Rose. All those guys are like coming up now, and it's the change of the guard now, and I love it. It's kind of like I compare wrestling and hip hop in sort of a way. Here you have, you take, you got little guys like Lil Wayne, and they're at the top, and then you have, they're not the best lyrical guys on the planet, but they sell records. That's kind of like John Cena and Randy Orton, and they force feed you. They're on the radio constantly, their songs on the radio. John Cena's on TV constantly. Then you have, your underground, hip-hop artists, don't get noticed. They got a certain fan base. They make good quality music. It's no different than, Punk. They're wrestlers. They came up from that, that underground, that, Ring of Honor and the Indies. And that's what we want. That's what wrestling is. It's not the, the whole FCW farm system. Like, they need to start getting more indie guys. Like the old school days. That's what we want.
Cool. All right. Well, an interesting analogy. I didn't ever think we'd have the opportunity to talk about Lil Wayne on this program, and I'm sort of upset that we did. But be that as it may, ever since seeing him at the VMAs, he was the guy at the end, right? And I just pull your frickin' pants up. There's nothing that bothers me more than, here's the thing: if you do something wrong, you need to get away. How are you going to run with those pants hanging that low? That's the piece I just can't understand. All right. We're going to get to a couple more phone calls here. By the way, we're in overtime. Show planned to end at 11:30, so we want to thank all of you for joining us and continuing to be a part of the show. I understand Linda Kay's got to drop off, so Linda, we're going to see you again this next Monday, right here on Blog Talk Radio for the Pro Wrestling Report. Thank you so much for joining us. And how about a final woo Linda knows it for her boy Zack Ryder?
Woo, woo, woo. You know it.
The lovely Linda Kay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go to our next caller who's calling from the 347 area code. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? All right. How about a caller from the 914 area code? Caller from the 914, you're live.
Hello, Damien.
Hi.
Hi.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Devin. I'm calling from New York.
All right, Devin from New York.
Yes, I just want to talk about the state of the WWE.
Yeah.
I think the roster is fine, and I'm really glad that they're building up the mid card. But the one thing that I notice, or I just don't like, how the opponents, they don't seem to really hate each other. You don't really feel the heat between them. It's just kind of like guy one versus guy two for about a month. It's not like how when Macho Man feuded against Jake the Snake, or Rock, Stone Cold, or Undertaker, Austin. You don't feel the hatred between them. And they don't even really do, backstage assaults anymore.
Only Cody Rhodes does.
Well, it's just missing that real hatred between them. It's just, they fight in the ring. and they say a couple of words and they just go and they leave. You don't feel any kind of real emotion between the people that are wrestling each other.
And David Hero, you've made this point many a time, and you said this in regards to the Triple H and Kevin Nash match last night. It was a fight. Is that what's missing? Is that what's different? There isn't that hatred? There isn't that just, I mean,
well, the problem is that guys today in their matches, they don't try to win. They just try to get all their stuff in, all their moves.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we just don't want to see a punch and kick fight like we did with Nash and Triple H, but you also want to see the guys try to hurt each other, try to win. And, there's all this stuff jumping over the top rope and planchas and, all these other things that if you're in a real fight with somebody, you're not going to use.
Right. All right. Well, Devin in New York, a very valid point. And, one thing that, as you talk about that I thought about was, do you remember that one of the most historic promos of all time, I'd have to say, which was Rock Stone Cold, when Stone Cold had driven in the beer truck, and he talked to The Rock, and he's saying, you spill your nursery rhymes, you talk about this and that, the other thing. You better get real serious, son, because come WrestleMania, I'm going to check in the SmackDown Hotel, go right up to room 316, and burn that son of a bitch to the ground. I mean the realism, the truthfulness, the emotion in promos like that brought you into the building.
The emotional investment. I mean, those guys were great talkers. And when they fought, when it was Austin versus Rock, it was a fight. I mean, They would go all over the arena. I mean, they'd go up to the popcorn stand, into the bathroom. I mean, they fought. Nowadays, it's a completely different atmosphere. You don't feel a sense of urgency in anything.
Yep. Well, let's go to our final caller of the evening, coming to us from the 517 area code. Caller from the 517. You're live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, guys. This is Eric from Michigan. How you doing?
Tremendous.
Very, very good. First of all, I want to say, hey, David here. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, man, it was great seeing a DHHS sign in the audience.
Oh, come on. I was hoping that wouldn't come up.
That was amazing.
Better.
I was like sitting there and I'm just like, I need to talk to David right now and let him know that he's a superstar.
See, Damian Nelson, you
Don't
can't
feed
stop
it.
it.
Don't feed it.
Damian, I'm starting to get more respect for you too. The whole thing about you giving up on the Miz now is just so great. And
whoa. Wait a minute. Back up. Beep. I've not given up on The Miz. David Hero single-handedly ruined his career when he selected him in the 2011 Pro Wrestling Report draft. I am simply being honest and real it up front because once they're endorsed, they stay endorsed, including Heath Slater. But no, I'm still a Miz Marquis.
You seem to be giving up a little bit, but that's beyond the point. I got a couple of things to bring up to you guys, and I want to preface this by saying you guys are notorious flip-floppers, but I understand the way you flip-flop because I'm also a writer, and I'm a journalism student, and these are the things that help us make up our minds in the proper, logical way. So all you angry internet wrestling fans, stop it. Think logically, like these guys are doing. They're providing a service to you and putting on an entertaining show.
Well, thank you, Eric in Michigan. It's always interesting, especially, and David, you and I talk about this a lot, what people tell us we said that we never said or tell us what we meant that we never meant. And, of course, it's our responsibility to make sure that's communicated as effectively as possible. But it is what it is. I mean, hell, a lot of people are saying that there is no logic in professional wrestling anymore, but these are the questions that you have to ask while you're caught up in the euphoria of just liking it. And I've been a long-time advocate of just sitting back and enjoying the show and not thinking too much into it. And keep in mind, we did not expect to, A, go 2 hours, B, 2 hours talking about these three people for the entire broadcast, basically. And, David, I think one thing that's important to point out is now – correct me if I'm wrong, but anybody can call into this show, right?
Absolutely.
Including those that want to talk about TNA?
Sure, of course.
Now, tonight, did anybody call in and talk about TNA?
No, not at all.
Did anybody ask us to talk about TNA?
I don't believe so. No, I don't think so that either.
Do we do a full 30-minute episode specifically dedicated to TNA each and every week?
Well, I don't. The guy who's dead from the neck up does that one.
We firmly, truly wanted to talk about TNA Impact last week with Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett being fired and all that was going on there. But obviously, with your phone calls and this spirited discussion, time has run out, and that's what happens in live broadcasting. So we apologize for that. But tune in to Primetime this Friday night to check that out and hear what we had to say.
Saturday night. Come on.
Did I say Friday?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's how rumors started.
You know, it's Christmas Eve, David Hero. We got some special stuff on the set, some poinsettias.
Ho-Hos will be on the set, too, I heard.
Hey, stop. No. Really?
What? Santa and good cheer.
It's a special Christmas edition. The Pro Wrestling Report this Saturday night on My24 Milwaukee and all over the world at PWRshow.com. I want to thank David, Ron, Ruben, Chris, Dwayne, Devin, and Eric for calling in and joining us here on the program tonight. And while we did run down the card for TLC, be sure to check out the post show, which featured a special appearance by Billy Gunn, which is available on our website as well, PWRshow.com. We will be back with you here again on Thursday for Sudden Impact Radio, which is our only show which is dedicated in its title to a specific wrestling organization each and every week. Yes, that is a pointed comment to some of you out there. So be sure to tune into that. And maybe David will share those numbers, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people listening to this show right now. And I think you'd be surprised if you found out how many people listen to the live Sudden Impact Radio show on Thursday nights. But be that as it may, it will be this Thursday night. And I think in closing, David Hero, it's important to note the following. A summary statement, if you will. We are very happy for CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, and Zack Ryder and their respective championships. The question that we started the show off with was, do they look the part? Not questioning their physical ability, not questioning their deservedness of those titles, not questioning whether or not they've done all that it takes to be those champions. The only question was merely superficial and looking at the appearance and comparing it to those who have held the same title, the 10 people who have held the same title before them. That statement was the core of what we were talking about. It, of course, went off on many different channels and branches and different types of discussion, but be that as it may, good discussion overall. Very happy for those of you that called and agreed and disagreed, because that's what this show is all about, and we encourage you to do so. So, again, our sincerest apologies for not having the opportunity to get to the TNA discussion. But, David Hero, do you want to and summarize any of your statements from earlier where apparently we buried CM Punk and Zack Ryder?
No, I think I was pretty crystal clear, and if you didn't follow me, well, I apologize for yourself.
This has been the Pro Wrestling Report live on Blog Talk Radio. We'll be back with you again on Monday night right here as well. So be sure to follow the show right here on Blog Talk Radio so you never miss an episode, and grab it on iTunes. Get it for free on the go. For Linda Kay and David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in.